Hey everybody, it's David Kemp. I'm the host of the Highway to Health podcast series. And the real purpose of this podcast is to unlock the voices of the experts around the topics that we're all passionate about. And as a dad, as a former athlete, a coach, I know there's not a community more passionate than the youth baseball or youth athletics community. And so that's why I'm really excited to have our guest on the show today. I'm going to introduce you to Blair Bundy, who's the Director of Player Health for the Milwaukee Brewers. And we're coming off of opening day. Baseball season just started. So I thought it was a really relevant topic to get Blair's opinion on the way we should be training these young athletes, how to keep their arms healthy, how to create really long-lasting, healthy habits, and obviously improve and maintain a really great experience for these young athletes as they are training, getting better, growing, and learning the game. And I'm glad you're with us today. And I can just anticipate the dads, the moms, the coaches, even the players really benefiting from this conversation. So Blair, welcome to Highway to Health.
Hey, thanks for having me on, David. Appreciate the invite. This will be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate your time. Before we get into it, give our listeners a little bit of a background. Director of Player Health could mean a lot of different things, and I'm sure different clubs handle it differently. Tell us about your role there with the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, so I, as a Director of Player Health, basically I oversee the day-to-day operations of our medical apparatus from the Major League team all the way to how we do things that are Dominican Republic complex. So it's just a big job where we're managing over 180 players, like kind of healthcare. That includes athletic training, that includes rehabilitation services. I've dabbled in the psych world as well, just kind of our performance psychology, sports psych world as well. And so it's a really unique challenge. Classically trained as a physical therapist. And so being able to now oversee kind of this entire umbrella and get obviously a lot more too involved in the day-to-day of how our athletic training staff works. It's been really a fun learning opportunity for me, but it's just I'm really fortunate to be able to kind of lead this group.
It's got to be an exciting time for you. It's got to be a really busy time for you. So, the few minutes that we get with you here, really appreciated and valued. The game has changed a lot from the time you and I were playing. As we were growing up, it was little league and it was, rec league. Now it's turned into big business. And I'd like to get your opinion and your perspective on how the game has changed, the way we train these kids, the expectations that we put on these kids. How have you seen the game evolve since your time as a player to now dealing with these young adults that are getting into your club?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And obviously, like you and I kind of are at an age where we've kind of lived to see that change. And now we have kids, we're going to see it even more starkly. I remember like going and watching my nephews play baseball when they were 8 or 9 and I was in college at the time, and it was just like, wow, this is different. And I wasn't that far removed from it. But really the industry surrounding youth athletics has changed significantly. And at the end of the day, like there's a rise of organizations, programs, training facilities and whatnot that are just designed to basically serve this population. And, serve may be a bad word. They're designed to interact with this population. Their ulterior motives may be different than actually just kind of helping our kids, but that's here nor there. But yeah, I think that the rise really of like showcase baseball, for example, and these like travel tournament teams, there's lots of facilities now that basically specialize in. It used to be just you'd have a batting cage, right?
Yeah.
And you had a batting cage you'd go to and you'd take your hacks and you were good to go. But now it's like there's batting lanes and there's fancy pitching machines and there's pitching coaches, hitting coaches, and there's probably someone in there who's going to tell you how to throw harder or swing harder or whatever else. So there's a shift in how we're actually like approaching talking to and training these kids. And so, as a result, like it's just what you see, I think, when they get to the professional level, like they tend to have more wear and tear on their tires, so to speak, just because they're getting exposed to a lot more things early on. Like we look at a lot of the injury prevention research talks about like exposures, right? How many exposures is going to potentially get you at risk? And if you think about the things we're doing, we're setting these kids up for nowadays, like it's just a lot more of exposure. So some kids survive it and do really well with it, and some kids, I think, they kind of go through a meat grinder at times. And I think that's the tricky part for a parent is like you see these things and you see other kids getting involved in it, and you're like, well, I guess I got to do this too, right? Like this is kind of what I guess how this works, and there's a better way to do it in my opinion. So.
I want to get into that because I'm fortunate enough to be connected to you and some others that have played the game and been a part of the game at a really high level, and the way they are raising, their young athletes and training their young athletes is greatly different than how somebody that has not played or been a part of the game at a high level, how those parents are raising and training their young athletes. And, so let's get into, maybe some of the benefits, some of the challenges. There's positives, there's negatives to this.
Sure.
Let's get into what that looks like, the pros and cons of travel ball versus rec ball. And, maybe a good way to answer this is you've got young kids. How would you want to see and how will you start, introducing the game to your kids? How would you want your kids to be coached?
Yeah. So if I think about this through the lens as a dad, right, and just knowing what I know about baseball in general, at the end of the day, I want my kids to enjoy playing sports. Like that's the goal. Like that's how I define success in this. If my kids enjoy playing sports and if they keep playing sports through high school, basically and turn into recreational athletes or even collegiate athletes, if I'm lucky, right? But if they just develop into recreational athletes later in life, like that's the best outcome for me as a dad, because that tells me they're probably going to carry with them like healthier habits going into like the rest of their life, and they can then pass those on to their children, et cetera. So to me, like that is how I would define success. And so if we dive into like what we can do early on. So, who does a really good job of this, surprisingly, is the Canadians. They have a really robust model for how they look at developing Olympic athletes from early ages all the way to, like, they call it a path to podium, right? But they look at early childhood and, like, your early childhood, like up to about 10 years old in terms of, like, how do we develop just, like, movement competency? How do we develop, like, design like training towards just kids are having fun, right? They're developing motor skills, they're learning their nervous system, they're kind of getting involved in this, but ultimately like they're expressing and developing some physical literacy around sport. And then once you get around the age 10, it really just kind of start to look at, okay, like you're preparing for that adolescent window. And so a little more focus on training, a little more exposure to actual competition, kind of learning the ins and outs of that. And then once you hit adolescence, that to me is the most critical period that your kids go through, because that's a huge window. We could talk about this from different points of view, but it's a really huge window from their ability to like develop athletically, develop mentally, develop emotionally, develop physically, all these different things. And so that's, to me, also, if you look at the statistics in terms of who stops playing sports in that 15, 16-year-old range or 15, 16-year-old range, that tends to be what it is. And so that's around that time where it's like it's critical to do it the right way. So if you're just thinking about doing travel ball or rec ball, like at the end of the day, like is your child having fun playing the game? Are they involved in a team where they want to be there? Like they're pulling you out the door. They want to go play catch in the park afterwards. They want to hit it on the weekends. Like they're expressing interest in doing this, like by all means, that's a win. Like that's what you want, right? And so you have to look for the signs more of like they are not engaged with what they're doing. They are not having fun anymore. Like that's where it tells you, okay, we need to potentially shake things up a bit. I don't think there's any issues with rec ball. Like rec ball is a really good way to basically like get your foot in the door, get some exposure to what the sport looks like, learn the rules, understanding like when, like how to win, how to lose, things like that. Like there's nothing wrong with that. To me, again, like travel ball has ties to like it's run as a business. Yeah. So there's an ulterior motive to make somebody money there. There are ways to do it where they're making money, but also doing a really good job in terms of helping your child develop and also developing like skills, being competitive, etc. Like that's great, but like that's where you run the risk to me of like if you're getting into travel ball, that's a different level of seriousness as a parent, and you're going to it's going to be different than rec ball. Rec ball's fun. Travel ball serious. Travel ball tends to be like the coaches take things more seriously. The parents can be a little bit more intense. Let's use that word.
That's a good word.
And then the focus is going to be on playing games. And I don't believe that early in life the focus should be on playing games all the time. Like, I think you're missing stuff if all you're doing is just playing baseball. Like, there's other things that you could be doing to develop. And if you just spend all your time playing games and collecting these little golden trophies that are just going to take up space, like, who cares? Like, you're missing out. So I think you just have to be careful with, like, once you kind of go down that travel ball route, you have to be really, really in tune with what's happening and say, oh, this may not be the best thing for us. Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, I've got a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy, girl, boy. They're almost 10, 11, 12. So they're getting into that age where, you know, it's becoming more competitive, a little bit more elevated skill wise. When we made the decision to go past rec ball, the conversation with our kids was, you know, it's an investment for the parents.
Mm-hmm.
It's an investment for the kids too, because it's money's involved. It's expensive. Mm-hmm. Time is the most valuable resource, and you don't have weekends when you're playing travel ball. And so, to your point about if your kid is showing interest, if your kid is having fun, if they're pulling you out of the house to play catch, if they're in the garage, you know, taking swings off of a tee without you asking them, that's a good sign. And the way I've phrased it to our kids, our older kids, was, I'll match your level of investment. Mm-hmm. If you're investing your time, your effort, your focus without me asking you to, it proves to me that it's worth me matching that investment and taking you as far as you want to go. Mm-hmm. But the minute that investment level becomes unbalanced, I think parents need to be aware of that, because that'll tell you right away who wants it more.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to keep that focus on the kids wanting it more than the parents. And the time that they spend is a great indicator of who's invested more heavily.
Yep. Yeah, I made a deal with myself as a dad to where it's like, if my son or now I have a daughter now too, but if anybody of my kids asks me, hey, I want to go outside and play catch or hit the baseball or throw the football or whatever, like, it's an automatic yes. Like, you and I both have busy jobs, like, we get it. We get pulled in different directions and our phone's always going off, and it's unfortunate with how this works as an adult at times. But that's the thing, is like, if I'm seeing my child express interest in like something that's physical, like, I'm in, like, let's go. Like, that to me is like, I want to keep feeding that. Not that I don't want to come across as I've got this ulterior motive, like, well, they got to get a Division I scholarship, or they got to go pro. Like, no, like, I want them to love being active, period. Like, if they happen to also have success that goes along with that, great. That's a huge benefit to it. But if they love to be active, that's the biggest win for me.
I think you and I see it all the time, just in, you know, the nature of the business that we're in. Building lifelong habits is such a critical part to having a high quality of life. And athletics, especially at the young age, you know, the focus on fun is so that they enjoy doing it and they build a habit, so that, you know, when they're in their 20s and they're not playing anything competitively, they still have this drive, this interest, this yearning to be active and to stay healthy physically. And all the studies show physical health leads to mental health, which leads to a higher quality of life. And I think you're touching on a really important piece here, is like, you can set your kid up for a lot of success in whatever they end up doing by building these healthy habits early on.
Mm-hmm. I think it's something too that, like, when I talk about how playing games is the wrong thing to focus on, because you have the opportunity, like, earlier in their development to, like, expose them to the weight room and understand, like, how to basically, like, develop some movement competencies in the weight room, like, expose them to, like, what quality nutrition is and how that what you eat ties into how you feel, and how you feel ties into how you play. It basically exposes them into, like, you know, how do you make sure you're getting enough sleep, right? We've talked about phones already, right? Like, how do we get kids off screens and get them to have 8-9 hours of sleep to where their brain gets what it needs, right? So there's ways, I think, to there's things we can focus on that are low hanging fruit with children, with youth athletes that, again, like they already have enough going on, right? They have homework, they've got club activities, they've got club sports, they've got all these things going on. Like stacking on like extra games to that when you could be like trying to focus on more of the healthy habits, the lifelong habits that will benefit them. Like that to me is how we could be spending our time better.
You've used the term movement competencies a few times. I want to ask you about that. For the parents that are out there that, there's some kids, right, that from a young age, they move well, they're coordinated, they have some instincts. And then there's some kids that has to be taught and learned. You are part of the game at the highest level in the world. Mm. I would imagine, but I'd like your opinion here, that there's players at that level that have learned movement competencies, and then you have players that have natural instincts and competencies that probably took less training. Talk a little bit about how we can train those competencies early on and build upon, the framework that is God given for a kid that may not be as naturally gifted.
Yeah. So the thing that I struggle with in my job is that we deal with world-class performers who move incredible, but like sometimes they move in ways that you and I might sit there and say, hey, that's not an ideal movement pattern. They may not score well in their FMS or whatever else, right? So they may have a less than ideal movement pattern, but it's that less than ideal movement pattern that's what makes them special. It makes them unique and it's given them success. And so you get someone at our level who's like a very highly valued athlete, and it's like you want to say, okay, well, like I'm looking at how they move, and it's like, don't, like they're special, and you have to like resist the urge to tinker with that. So when you talk about like youth development of kind of like movement literacy, like coordination, things like that, there's two different ways I look at this, and so this is again why I think that it's important. So I can take this a number of different ways, but I'll start here. That's why I think playing different sports is important, because I think different sports, other than just baseball, exposes you to different, let's call them like problems for their bodies to solve. They have to basically understand how to, maybe like if they're playing basketball, they're moving more laterally, they're doing more backpedaling, they're making more quick cuts. If they are playing golf, again, you're still learning how to rotate, but you may be thinking about more, it may just be something more about like kind of using your lower half to generate force. Like we did gymnastics growing up, so we're running around, tumbling, jumping into a foam pit. Again, like you're learning how your body moves in space. And so this is why I think that you have opportunities with young kids to basically design their training or their practice in a way that exposes them to things that like they may not get in a 9U baseball game, where if you're the right fielder, you may just like stare, like you may be picking flyers all game, right? Not really getting challenged. And so if you're just doing that game after game, like you're wasting their time.
Yeah.
But if you're designing stuff in practice where it's like making them like use their feet, making them have to like do like ball tracking in the outfield, learning how to basically run and like locate an object. If you're like having them do things like on the ground, this is why I think wrestling's cool as a kid, because like it's a very good in terms of like learning how your body works. Lots of different ways to expose them to good movement patterns that are only going to basically like build a foundation for them athletically. So when they start to get challenged or have to solve harder movement problems, like when you're having to do something with a higher velocity or like have to move faster, like they're better equipped to do it. So everyone develops differently. And I think that's always going to be the problem. Like I've got 4 kids, right? So I can already tell a big difference in how my 4-year-old moves and how my 2-year-old moves. Like my 4-year-old, like he's super coordinated. And it's like, and parents tell us all the time, and we're like, yeah, this is great, right? But
that's a good feeling.
Yeah, it's great. You're like, oh, this is awesome, right? My 2-year-old like doesn't move that way. He's like the wacky inflatable, like the thing you see at the used car lots. He just like when he runs, it's all over the place, and it's cool, man. Like he'll figure it out, and it's just one of those things where you have to like trust that like that's how your body works. You have to put them in situations where they continue to get challenged and figure it out. Yeah, that's a huge thing for me with multiple sports, right?
I think multiple sports is so important to create balance, in their athletic body and their coordination and all those things for all the reasons you just mentioned.
It's also how you don't burn out playing one sport, right? If I'm just playing baseball all year round and it's baseball, like you kind of get sick of baseball, right? It's the same thing if you're eating ice cream every day. You kind of get sick of ice cream, right? Eventually you're going to be like, hey, I don't want ice cream anymore.
As good as it is. Yeah.
So I think if you're mixing in, like when I was in junior high, like I played football in the fall, I played basketball in the winter, ran track in the spring, and I played baseball in the summer. And it was just all year doing something. And, if you think about how the sports, like we talk about how they play into each other, like I played defense in football. And so I had to basically learn how to do pass coverage and backpedal and cut. And that translates really well for someone playing the outfield in baseball. Same thing with doing track and field. Like I'm learning how to throw a discus and rotate. Baseball's a game about rotation, so it transfers into how well I can potentially generate rotational force. And I'm not even training that. I'm just doing a different sport that happens to be training me for baseball. And so, I mean, playing one sport's fine, David. It's not the end of the world because some kids don't want to play other sports. But as a parent, you've got to be able to sit there and say, okay, well, we have to take a break at some point this year from playing competitive, high-intent games and move into something where it's based around training, right? And that's Dr. Andrews is one of the biggest names in sports medicine.
Yes, he is.
He says do not pick up a baseball for 3 months out of the year, 3 consecutive months out of the year. Now, do my guys pick up a baseball? Yeah, they do, but they're playing light catch. They're not throwing bullpens. They're not doing crazy velocity development stuff. They are just playing catch. And if you think about if we're competing all year round, though, we're never giving our arm or shoulder or elbow a break from high intent throwing. And that's where I think that single sport athletes are going to have to be more aware of their calendar because you need to program that rest in. And honestly, you need to program in time for them to learn other things. And that could be just getting with a good strength conditioning facility or a good coach who knows how to do this stuff and train.
Yeah.
Take the money you would spend on travel baseball and invest it in, they're going to the gym 4 days a week for training sessions or something like that. I think that's a much better way to spend that money at that period of their life. So
you're touching on a pretty controversial topic here, and I'd like your opinion on this. And it's weight training, it's resistance training. Yeah. My oldest is almost 12 now, and he is coming to me. We have a gym in our small garage set up, and he sees me and he sees his mom out there working out, and he is coming to us now at 12 years old saying, how do I do that? How can I start doing that? What can I do? And, he's done push-ups, he's done pull-ups, he's done all these things, but he's got his eyes on resistance training. Tell our audience, educate me on the right way to introduce our young athletes to resistance training and what the right timing is.
Yeah. So first and foremost, having a gym in your house is the best thing in the world because that's what your kids will then see you doing something. And I think it's a huge life hack for getting kids involved in this or getting kids engaged because if they see you doing it, they're going to be like, hey, I want to do that. This is kind of cool. Plus that's a fun way to spend time with your kids, right? Right. Lifting weights for adolescents, right? And so a lot of this has been the big I'm not going to say rumors, the big, two big things I hear about weightlifting in adolescent kids is it's going to stunt their growth or it's going to make them inflexible. And both of those things are categorically untrue. Both of those things are, if you just lift weights, if you have someone teaching you who knows how to move the right way and can look at how you're lifting and say, oh, you're doing it right, you're going to be fine. Lifting weights before you get to your puberty window and there's no hormones flooding the system, it still does a really good job of training your nervous system how to basically organize and produce force in a certain direction. So you're training your brain, you're training your muscles to work together and to generate, because that's, again, we talk about coordination, right?
Yep.
They just don't have it. But if you're all of a sudden giving them a movement problem, like moving that barbell from here to there, or picking up a kettlebell or whatever else, right? You give them a problem, they have to basically use their brain, their muscles to organize and figure out how to produce force to move that. It will get better at that. And that's why if you've ever if you can remember back to when you started lifting weights, or if you've ever been around someone who started lifting weights, the first 6 weeks of lifting weights, you make incredible progress.
Yeah.
It's not your muscles. That takes way longer to develop actual muscular hypertrophy and get bigger and stronger. It's your nervous system. It's learning how to like work together and like say, okay, if we all do this at the same time and go this way, it moves and it's good. So that's what you can do with kids too, is you're teaching their nervous system how to basically organize and work in the right direction. You're also exposing them to lots of cool challenges where you have to basically teach them their body how to like co-contract, stabilize, how to potentially work on one leg and stabilize. There's still really lots of good things that come out of weightlifting in a prepubescent kid, right? When they hit their puberty window, like that's the best time to lift weights as a kid. Like you will never, ever, ever be in a better position. Like I would kill to go back and do that again, right? You just got so much testosterone and everything flowing around. Like it's the absolute best time to do it because your body's primed to do this, and like you're going to recover like it's the easiest thing in the world, right? So your body's primed to do that. And there's a really influential guy in the there's a chiropractor named Greg Rose, and he works for Titleist Performance Institute. Okay. Does a lot of stuff with like movement screens and working with professional golf players and how to help them move better to play better, right? I've heard him talk before about this window you have as an athlete during during puberty, where like that's the best opportunity for you to develop swing speed. And that's so if you have an athlete who's in that training window, like it's okay just to like train. Like so, getting after in the weight room is hugely important in that population. So I would say getting your kids exposed early to proper strength conditioning and nutrition is better than anything else you can do for them athletically. Like it's a huge benefit because like building musculature, that's your suit of armor, right? And there's been a ton of studies out there that talk about preventing injury. And we do know that like a base level of strength is going to be protective in certain ways. And, you know, I deal with elbow injuries all the time, right? I bet. There's a good deal of muscles that cross the elbow joint that helps stabilize the elbow and take stress off of the ligament. And so having, again, like a robust musculoskeletal system that knows how to contract and develop and like produce force, like you're a more powerful athlete and you're probably going to protect yourself actually. So I think strength conditioning is one of the best things you can do for kids.
I like how you're describing, you know, introducing a problem and then helping them, guiding them to finding a solution. You know, that's at the core, right? That is what raising productive people is all about, right? Yep. In a controlled environment like school, introducing them to problems, teaching them, guiding them on how to solve that problem so they become stronger mentally, yep. Right? That's what school is when you boil it down. Yep. So physically, it would make sense to introduce similar challenges, similar problems, and then guiding them to success through building up this habit, this coordination, and, you know, using the central nervous system to align and organize to be a better, more stable human being.
And not only that, like think about the confidence, the self-confidence you gain from like having muscles as a 14-year-old kid, like, and you're taking your shirt off at the pool party and it's like, oh yeah, like having a base level of strength or just some physical fitness, like it's a huge self-confidence thing for kids. And like, I do not, that's the one thing, like, I don't miss that going back to being 14 years old and having to feel like you have to impress everyone or fit in everywhere. Like, I don't miss that, but I know that like what we see in today's kids, like because of smartphones and social media and whatnot, like there's a ton of negatives. And if introducing weightlifting or introducing strength conditioning principles helps mitigate some of those things and actually builds confidence, all for that.
I mean, this is something, you know, I coached small college basketball. I wasn't at a D1 level, a high major level. And what ultimately would happen, almost always, inevitably, you'd go watch a high school player play, and they'd be a good player on their high school team. They weren't the level of player that I would recruit. And almost all the time, the parents would get upset about that. And the message I tried to share with those parents was, you know, there's probably 5% of athletes that get to have a really good high school experience. So that athlete of yours that is having a great high school experience that still isn't the level player that we would recruit, you should be thankful. You've done a great job. You're probably in the top 5% of all athletes because you're having a great high school experience. And you've set them up. Don't forget this part of it. You've set them up for great success moving forward as a healthy human being, mentally and physically. You've instilled great habits. You've built a tremendous amount of self-esteem and confidence mentally, which we all know plays a huge part in being, in being, I'm mentally healthy is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, totally.
And so, how you're describing it, I think take the competition part out of it, take wins and losses out of it, take the scholarship out of it. It's about setting your kids up for success for as long as they live.
Yeah. And I mean, like, thinking about baseball too, specifically as a metaphor for life, like baseball's a game of failure, right?
Yeah.
Like baseball's a game about like learning how to get kicked in the teeth and get back up there and like keep going. And it teaches you a lot about like how life works. And I don't mean to get like really deep here, but like that's how life is, man. Like it doesn't always go your way. And you have to learn how to like take the hit and keep going and like persevere. And that's a huge thing that sports gives you. And that's why I think it's so important, again, to like do this the right way, because if you do, you get kids who can, they stick with it longer and they learn how to overcome those things. And if they're not having fun and they quit and they don't want to be active and they don't even get that type of exposure too, in terms of building some mental resiliency, in terms of learning how to like handle failure, like we're not setting them up for success. To go back to your mental health point, like we are not doing them any favors. And all those little like 6-inch trophies weren't worth it. You're right. It didn't set up for success.
You're right. Yeah, the world's a tough place, and if they can start learning how to overcome smaller challenges in an athletic setting, then they're going to be more prepared to overcome bigger challenges when they get to, their career, when they're starting a family, and all of those things. It builds resiliency. You said it best. Moving from one controversial topic to another, which is, we hear more today about pitch counts and arm health, and you go to these tournaments and, they get a certain number of pitches each day, and coaches are always looking for ways around those rules. But there's more of a talk, more of a discussion, more of a focus on arm health and rest, at least verbally now. But that hasn't necessarily translated into healthier arms at your level. You're seeing some pretty dramatic trends and changes in, different type of surgeries that your players are having to have. Tell our listeners, just give them some exposure as to what you're seeing in terms of UCL injuries, Tommy John surgeries, and how that's changed over the years.
So it's funny because like there's so much more like information and literature out there about pitch counts, about arm care, about all these different things that are designed to keep kids healthy, and injury rates haven't changed. They've actually probably gotten worse. And we talk about exposures, right? Yeah. Like it's still happening. And we're seeing more people at our level who've had their second Tommy John. I've seen a few who've had their third. And it's kind of crazy where it's like something has to give, right? Now, I do think that part of this is based around the fact that everything in baseball is moving towards like velocity. Yep. And that's inherently hard on your elbow. And so like there is a kind of like a health and performance trade-off at certain points where it's like, if you're playing baseball at that level, like it's inherently not healthy for you anymore, right? So we have to do our best to kind of keep them in the right spot. But no, I think that like kids that we get are much more fluent, I think, in terms of like understanding like how to prepare their arm to throw. Knowing what arm care exercises look like, they have a much better exposure to that, like in high school and college, which is good. I think that it's our job then to help them understand, okay, like this is now your job, right? And the things that you do around your job are what's going to make you better at your job. And so we try to do really intentional with how we spend our time in educating our athletes a lot in terms of like the weight room, the training room, doing stuff in the kitchen, everything else we can do to kind of get them to sleep, just to
good luck.
Recover. Yeah, recovery is a huge thing too. But I think as a youth athlete, like as a parent, like you need to understand that pitch counts exist and understand what they are for like the league that you're in or your kid. And you don't do the dumb things that other people do, which is where they have their kids in multiple leagues the pitch tracking doesn't carry over.
Right.
Don't do that. Don't pitch for multiple teams. Like if the best pitchers in the world pitch at best on 5 days rest, like your kid's not better than that. Don't do that. It's bad for them. We do a lot of stuff like this with some of the cool things too about pitch count just to go on a nerdy aside, there was a research study that came out, I want to say back in like 17 or 18, that looked at like in-game pitch count versus total pitch count.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not accounting for things they've done like warming up, not accounting things they've done for in the bullpen. You're not accounting for the 8 warm-up pitches they get every inning. Actual in-game pitch count only accounts for like 60% of the actual competitive pitches they threw that day.
Wow.
So even then, like even if you're saying, oh, well, he only threw 64 pitches, well, actually, he probably threw close to 100, right? You have to kind of give yourself a bit of like a buffer there. And so I think the best thing you can do from a pitch count standpoint is like as a parent, like track it and know what the recommendations are for like next time they should be on the mound, right?
Yeah.
The kids who get in trouble are the kids who pitch and also catch. It's the worst combination you can do because as a catcher, every time you got to throw it back, right? And so it may not be high intent, but like it still counts for something. It's still
exposure.
Not getting your body to recover. So you have to be kind of mindful for that pitching catching combination. But as a parent, like you just have to keep track of it. Again, that includes to me how many pitches they throw in the bullpen to get ready that day, how many pitches did they throw in game, and then how many pitches did they throw each inning to warm up.
Yeah, that's
your actual pitch count, regardless of what the actual end game is. Like that's your actual pitch count.
So I don't want to put a hard number on it, but because that's impossible. Every kid's different. But you know, I've got a 9, almost 10-year-old, right, and this is his first year in kid pitch. There's a lot of muscle memory, right, that comes with being an effective pitcher. It's not necessarily how many pitches he's made, but he's got to coordinate his lower half with his upper half and gain some accuracy and other things. How best during the week? Is it throwing a bullpen but throwing it 50% effort? Is it limiting it to 20 pitches 3 or 4 times a week? What's the best strategy to building coordination, accuracy, and muscle memory without wearing your arm out with too many exposures?
It's a great question, right? And if I knew the answer to that, I'd probably have a lot more money than I do, right?
Let's do it together. We can solve it right here, and then we'll sell it.
That's a really good question. So I think that the only way you're going to get better at being an effective pitcher in a competitive setting is to actually be in a competitive setting. So you have to think about high intent as a good teacher, right? Because for me to self-organize and go through a pitching mechanics and actually still be able to throw strikes, like that's hard to do. And it's you've been to a kid's pitch game, like it's just spray and pray, right? Like you have no idea where you're going. So the thing that gets kids in trouble for that age too, and we talk about the developmental window here, is that if you want your kid to be able to throw harder later in life, to be able to like be competitive, if they're pitching earlier in life and the focus is on throw strikes, take a little bit off and throw strikes, they're actually teaching their body to not produce force the right way. And so it's a catch-22, right? Yeah. And so I think that's where it comes into like learning how to basically do these things at a high intent. So that could be just simply like in a throwing program, like having them just like, hey, like try to hit me as hard as you can in the chest, like right here, like doing things where it's like you're building in bits of high intent and having to like organize and figure that out. I think to me as a youth pitcher, more exposures with a lower pitch count is probably better than like, I'm going to throw 60, 70, 80 pitches and not throw again for 4 days. Like I think that they'd benefit more from throwing 1 to 2 innings and having 2 or 3 days rest and being able to do it again, because you're getting them more opportunities to learn that. And also they're probably not going to be like, if you're doing 60, 80 pitches as a kid, like they're going to be fatigued.
Yeah.
Like that's not a great way to learn. So having them do more exposures at a lower pitch count is probably your best bet for it, would be my guess.
I like that strategy, just bursts of high intent reps, but without introducing too much fatigue. And that helps them keep their coordination better too. As they get fatigued, then their mechanics break down. And so I like that strategy. We're almost done here, but I'm sure parents are out there. Most of them for this season have selected the team that they're going to play for, right? But every winter, these players are looking for a place to play. There's no shortage of options. What should parents look for in an organization, a coach, and they've already committed to travel ball. This is something that they're going to do. What should these parents look for to help make the right selection in terms of culture, in terms of, habits and thought process, to give their kids the best experience, to build the best habits, to set them up for long-term success?
So you kind of already said it a little bit, but like to me, it's three big things. It's the coach, it's the culture, and it's the outcome should be confidence, right? You want a coach whose focus is on developing kids, not like winning tournaments all the time. It needs to be like, are we truly focused on development? Because like games don't really start counting until they get on the high school roster. I'm just telling you, no one cares about your 13U like World Series. Like no one cares, right? The kids care, but ultimately like the kids are going to get more out of it if they're able to actually play, participate, like get more exposure into it. So you want a coach who's able to effectively design practices to get kids lots of reps, good reps, like get them kind of like engaged. And you want a coach who's good about like understanding like our goal here is to develop.
Yeah.
It isn't to basically like just like to win all the time. And that's sacrilegious to say, but like the focus is development as a kid.
And
the culture is going to tell you a lot, right?
Yeah.
How the parents interact with each other, how the kids interact with each other. Do they want to spend time with each other outside of baseball? Like that's huge. And I was fortunate to play on some teams like that where like the culture was awesome. And I miss that. That's the best. Like that's what I miss the most about playing sports is it's not the games. It's like the stuff with your team, right? And so that to me is like a huge thing to look for is like getting a sense for what the culture is like, how the parents interact with each other in the stands, how the parents interact during the game. Are they just yelling all the time? Are they talking to the umps all the time? Like that's not it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
It's going to be like the outcome should be confidence. You want a system, a coach and a system that's designed to instill confidence in your son and your daughter. The worst thing a coach can do, and to me this borders on child abuse, is steal someone's confidence because you're taking away their desire and their drive and their love to play that game. And like, that's truly a horrible thing if you think about that. Like it's truly going to potentially like change how they look at sports participation moving forward.
And fear of failure will be a detriment to their, every aspect of their life moving forward. You've got to be okay with failure. That's how you learn. And the other thing that I think you have unique insight into is if your kid is good enough, if he's talented, or if she's talented, the scouts, the recruiters, they will find you. Don't go, I'd like your opinion on this, but don't go put them into a program because you think that they're going to get more eyes on them. If they're capable, they'll be found.
Correct. I think it's one of those things where you could be throwing 90 miles an hour in Siberia and someone's going to find you, right? Like we have enough technology nowadays to where it's not hard for people to get noticed if they are pitching hard or whatever, right? It's not hard to be found. And so that's where I think the irony is in these showcases. It's like, no, like you don't need that. Like maybe 10 years ago when all this stuff didn't exist and like social media wasn't what it was, or the way we actually like use technology to like track pitches and stuff wasn't where it was. But like showcases in my mind, it's like they don't need that anymore. Like it's just literally just like you're making someone else money at that point, and it's unnecessary like exposure to your kid. So
I'd agree with that. All right, last thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about a lot, but boil it down to one takeaway. You want these parents, you want these players, these coaches to walk away understanding or remembering one thing that we talked about today. What would that one thing be?
That the biggest success for kids playing sports is developing a lifelong athlete. It's going to be like we talked about benefits of your physical health, your mental health, like just look at our healthcare system in general. Like it's a burdened healthcare system, and having physically fit, mentally resilient individuals are less of a burden on a healthcare system. They're also going to be like generally just like more productive members of society, and they're more useful and harder to kill. Right? That's the thing, is we want good outcomes for our kids, and like for them to turn into like good, healthy, resilient adults who can then like instill those habits, keep you going forward. Like that's huge. So, lifelong athletes. That's the number one thing you try to create.
I couldn't have said it better. And that's one of the things at this podcast I'm hoping to, distribute in terms of the kind of knowledge that we want to share. The healthcare system, is going to be the healthcare system. We have a responsibility personally to build healthy habits for ourselves, to build healthy habits for our kids and the younger generation, because that responsibility nobody's going to do for us. And so I couldn't have said it better than you. I'm going to be a huge fan of the Milwaukee Brewers from this point forward. I can't thank you enough for being on Highway to Health. I know our listeners enjoyed it. So good luck this season.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Blake.